Hello, my name is Rusty Clark. My big problem that I chose to tackle for this class was the phenomenon of nature deficit disorder, um, which, just to recap, is like not an official diagnosed disorder, but it's a set of very problematic symptoms that can arise when young children are not allowed to or encouraged to play outdoors, and so they kind of spend their lives inside. Um, So, the idea that I want to focus on with the Bronfenbrenner theory is specifically the microsystem, because I think this has a lot to do with the individual themselves. And then for cognitivism, I'm focusing more on the different stages. So, for the cognitivist learning theory, it basically states that learning occurs um, through the addition of new information into like already existing mental schemas or um, completely new schemas. And that depends on the type of information and how it's provided. Um, so, within my big problem and the Bronfenbrenner theory, um, focusing on the microsystem, sorry, my goal to approach and apply cognitivism is, again, through the different stages. So in the initial stage, which is the sensory motor stage, that's when children, like infants, they're not really talking, they're not really using complex language, not really having a lot of symbolic thought. So their primary engagement with nature is going to be through the senses. So this can be something like encouraging new parents to take their baby outside and let them sit in the grass, touch the grass, roll around in it, handing them different textures that they see around them, different leaves and bark and rocks, and letting them really experience that. The second stage, the pre-operational, 2 to 6, 2 to 7, so they're pretty young. They can still they're developing some abstract thought, they're developing, a lot of language skills, but they're not quite there yet. This is a key time for imaginary play, and this obviously the best setting for my theory would be outside. And so these can be things like, teaching kids about all these different animals, because, kids love animals, and pretend to be a lion, pretend to be a bear, and how would you act in this environment if you were this animal? And so building their confidence and their knowledge. In the concrete operational stage, this is a good time for, in my mind, engaging in nature-based experiments. I say experiments because they're primarily observation for most of them. There are a couple that are experiments, but they're mostly observational. So things like, charting the time of year that the leaves start to change, and then keeping that information, and then charting when the leaves start to fall, and comparing the time, like in the fall one year versus the time next fall. How did that change? What do you think changed it? Another one would be, growing their own garden and saying, okay, when I give them this much light and this much shade, this happens. When I give them this much light and this much shade, this happens. This is what happens when I change the water intake. So they're engaging in the process of learning about nature in a way that's intriguing for them. And then finally, informal operational, which is going to be your adolescence and beyond. It's going to be really hard to get them to engage in, these types of science experiments. So my theory and idea would mostly be to prioritize, young people engaging with nature in a very calming way. So sort of realizing how the positive effects of being outside and how it impacts their stress levels and their anxiety. And so encouraging that sort of interaction. One thing I am kind of struggling with this project is sort of narrowing it down to one thing to kind of focus on. Again, because mine is really broad and also is more of an idea. Like nature deficit disorder, again, is not a officially diagnosed disorder. It's more of a kind of an idea. So that's kind of the thing I'm working on right now.